Cronkite News starts now.
Welcome to this Wednesday edition of Cronkite News. I'm Tina Giuliano.
And I'm Jamie Landers. Thank you for joining us as we work remotely to bring you the latest on the coronavirus pandemic and how it's affecting Arizonans.
Reporter Madison LaBerge is joining us now to break down everything you need to know about COVID-19 in our state.
Today, the Arizona Department of Health Services is reporting 75 new cases of COVID-19 in the state. Mojave and Cochise counties also announced new cases. This brings the total of all cases in Arizona to 403 at the time of this report. 6 deaths have been confirmed, and the community risk is increasing, with some areas having more of a risk than others. All but 3 counties have had cases of the novel coronavirus, but Maricopa County tops the list with 251 cases. AZDHS has only tested 368 tests, indicating that the majority of the testing is being done through private labs. Sonora Quest, LabCorp, the Translational Genomics Research Institute, and the Mayo Clinic are all testing people for the coronavirus. While they are not disclosing how many tests they are processing, they have run over 88% of the positive tests in the state. AZDHS and the CDC are still recommending to not gather in groups of 10 or more and to telework if possible. In Phoenix, Madison LaBerge, Cronkite News.
Arizona State President Michael Crow confirmed in an interview with the state press that there are now 15 reported cases of COVID-19 among students. Only one of the students is hospitalized due to a pre-existing condition. ASU is working with health officials to locate and contact anyone who may have come into contact with a student who tested positive. Right now, the university is also working to deep clean the student residential areas and reminding students about the social distancing protocol. Campus dining has transferred to takeout only, and no visitors are allowed in the dorms at this time.
With more people being tested for COVID-19, we spoke to a Phoenix woman and former Cronkite News student who recently went through that process, testing negative. Shaha Mustafik told us she was feeling ill, but wasn't concerned until her cough and body aches got worse. She says she did not have a fever, but decided to call urgent care for guidance. They conducted a consultation over the phone and then told her she should come in. Mustafik explained what the COVID-19 test was like.
Let's go ahead and test you for COVID-19. So she did, she pulled out tube like that big and this sort of like long thing. It was probably like that big. It had like it looked like a brush at the end of it. So she told me she's gonna, to like tilt my head back, and she's gonna insert it in my nose and then like go down kind of like back of my throat a little bit. She did it in one nostril and did it in the other. It took about, no longer than like 30 seconds. The test itself was very, very uncomfortable.
Mustafik suggests you call your healthcare provider before taking any other steps if you suspect you're ill with the virus. She also warns people to take the illness more seriously, as it can affect people of all ages. While health officials are urging people to stay indoors in order to stop the spread of coronavirus, many in Arizona are heading out, putting our parks and open spaces to use. Cronkite News reporter Frankie McLister spoke with several park officials about why they remain open, despite COVID-19 concerns.
Over the weekend, we were extremely busy, especially at our most popular trailheads. We had a couple of instances where cars were creating their own parking spots. There were several hundred people gathering kind of through one of our major trailheads, which of course is not social distancing.
And that is causing concern among medical professionals. Right now, most city, county, state, and national parks all across Arizona are still open to the public, despite the COVID-19 outbreak.
March tends to be our busiest month of the year anyway. I think because there are some closures around the community that there are folks who are finding their way to us.
While the Arizona Department of Health Services still is classifying hiking as a safe activity to practice during the outbreak, it's also recommending that people maintain at least 6 feet of distance from each other. These photos taken this past weekend at Phoenix's Papago Park showed that most were not practicing social distancing from each other. Currently, Maricopa County has the highest number of coronavirus cases in Arizona. And despite this, in a statement to Cronkite News, the Maricopa County Parks and Recreation Department says that they have, quote, canceled all park programs and events, closed all park nature centers and group Ramada reservations, closed group youth campgrounds, and stopped accepting future reservations for these areas. They also posted signage on all playground areas stating that usage is not recommended at this time. Meanwhile, the National Park Service manages 24 properties in Arizona that are also currently open. Last week, it was announced that it would be waiving all entrance fees to its parks, a decision questioned by those who worry about the overcrowded open spaces.
What we were seeing was that some parks were already starting to close their fee booths just because they weren't able to have somebody there to collect. And so providing that consistency to just waive the fees across the board made it easy, again, because some of those parks were already in that position.
Lacayo also says park goers do have a responsibility to keep others safe if they choose to use the facilities.
We're all in this together, so if you happen to be at a park that is still open, that has some accessibility, to make sure that they're helping us by following the latest CDC guidance, making sure they're keeping their distance from people if they're not feeling well, to just not go.
In Phoenix, Frankie McWhister, Cronkite News.
Governor Doug Ducey introduced an initiative Tuesday to connect people who need help with those who want to give it. ArizonaTogether.org includes the state's coronavirus relief fund, which will direct money to frontline medical personnel, as well as offer support for nonprofits that run food banks, homeless shelters, domestic violence facilities, and online learning. The resource guide also lists how to find help with personal finances, job searches, childcare, and more.
Spring is officially here in Arizona, but new data shows it's actually arriving earlier for many communities around the state. Cronkite News reporter Caroline Lynch explains what's behind this.
Wildflowers are blooming and temperatures are warming up across Arizona. But for Flagstaff and Phoenix, spring arrived early this year.
Leaves began to emerge 18 days earlier in Flagstaff and 3 days earlier in Phoenix compared to past springs. That's according to data compiled from the USA National Phenology Network. Flagstaff is one of the cities that's seen the most dramatic changes out of more than 240 cities analyzed by Climate Central. Arizona's state climatologist Nancy Sullivan says earlier springs are coming as the climate warms.
Springtime comes a little earlier because the temperatures start to warm a little bit earlier. And the whole general fact that winter's becoming a little bit warmer and summer's becoming a little bit warmer is kind of moving that thing.
Earlier springs can potentially harm natural cycles such as wildlife migration and reproduction. However, Sullivan says the upside is great weather brings more visitors to the state, but people will need to pay attention when they are to put seeds in the ground.
Nothing you can do. You just take it as it comes, but you just want to be careful when you're planting things, and you think, oh, the last freeze has come. Just take another look with the Weather Service and check to see if there's not something else coming down the pike.
Sullivan says we can expect to see spring's early arrival for years to come. In Phoenix, for Cronkite News, I'm Caroline Lynch.
Speaking of weather, it was pretty windy out there earlier this week, but things seem to have calmed down today.
And now snow chances are on the rise up north. Jordan Evans is standing by with a closer look at that, plus your 8-day forecast. Jordan?
Yeah, hi Tina, you're right, just a little bit actually. In fact, models today have been backing off on the amount of moisture coming in with this next storm system. So I think our focus is going to be transitioning to the colder air. In fact, here in the valley, in that 8-day forecast, we're talking about a tale of two seasons, and we'll show you that here in just a minute. But in the meantime, we did manage to warm up into the upper 70s today, despite all the high cloudiness that we have seen. And because of that, we're actually going to keep those 70s with us throughout most of the evening tonight. So still, a really nice evening to keep those windows open if you're planning to let in some of that fresh air into your home. Now for tomorrow, we will start a little bit off chilly though in the 50s, but we're gonna get the 60s back in our forecast by 11. And tomorrow's gonna be a little bit colder here in the valley. In fact, some spots may struggle to actually make it to 70. If anyone hits 70, it will be between that 2 and 5 o'clock hour, but the clouds will be on the decrease throughout the day. And I think we'll be back to mostly clear skies as we get into the evening. Now, across the state for tomorrow, a lot of freezes up north still, with the Grand Canyon and Flagstaff down to the 20s, and Prescott will get down to 35, and Show Low down to 38, with high temperatures all across northern Arizona getting up into the 40s and 50s for tomorrow. Slight chances of rain or snow, mainly in the late evening to early morning hours as we get into your Friday. But as you can see across the deserts, we're going to keep that forecast pretty dry because the air here at the surface is just too dry to support anything that would fall from the clouds, such as places like Tucson and Safford. But a couple 70s on the map still, 71 in Tucson, 74 in Safford for tomorrow afternoon, and 70 degrees in Yuma. So let's show you the big picture real quick. In fact, this is really interesting because I want to show you the storm system that's coming in. And remember last week, this thing kind of lingered a little bit, and that's why we got actually some rain out of that storm last week. But this one's going to be moving pretty fast. So here's where we are for Friday. And as you can see, that purple and blue over our state, that's the storm system itself trying to get in that moisture out of the Gulf of California, but it's just not going to be able to pull up a ton. But look what happens as we get into next week. All of that blue and purple now transitions into red. And what that is that is upper level high pressure building in. And what that means is that this forecast is going to be heating up as we get into next week. So here's a look at that 8-day forecast. Remember, Tina, I said a tale of two seasons, and you can basically see it here because we're going to go from 66 on Friday back into the 80s on Monday, potentially flirting with 90 as we get into the later part of next week. And we are actually right on schedule if we were to hit 90 next week. Our first average 90-degree day here in Phoenix is March 31st. So that's something we'll be watching for you next week. But in the meantime, enjoy that weekend looking sunny and dry. And we'll bring you updates to this next storm system tomorrow if any changes are needed.
That's it for Cronkite News, from our homes to yours. Thanks for watching.
For Arizona news updates throughout the day, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and find us online at cronkitenews.azpbs.org.